Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you my spooky pairs and Halloween special. So we're going to have a look at tarot and oracle decks that I use for Halloween, and I'm filming it on Halloween, and I really hope you enjoy it. It's going to be so much fun. Let's have a look. So I had to make some room first because I'm surrounded by, I'm not going to say all of my Halloween stuff because I got a lot more than this, but let's say some of my Halloween stuff. And I have to say, I'm just going to quickly show you the pieces that are my favorite. This is a skull with a raven on top. I do have a thing for skulls. I don't know why. It's not necessarily related to Halloween. It's just, you know, something that I really enjoy. And there is a shop in Australia which is called the Reject Shop, and it's really cheap. It's got all sorts of things, and I think that it's very similar to a dollar store in the US, although I'm not entirely sure. And they have all of these really cool things. Like, look at this skeleton. It's basically holding a book shut. I mean, how cool is that? And you can find all these things for Halloween in specific, but I think that they actually started you know, selling stuff for Christmas as well. And they're like $2, $3, $4. Perhaps this one was $5, $6, something like that. But look how cute it is. I mean, it's adorable. It's a skeleton that is pondering the meaning of life, you know, over a book of spells. And I just really enjoy having it around. And then we've got more skulls, and you guessed it, more skulls. For example, this one, really super cute. If you want to put your drink in there and then you can sip. And I also have my fab brew mug, which is really fabulous. So basically, today it's a Halloween special because I really wanted to celebrate the fact that this year Australia's gone all out when it comes to Halloween decorations. I've never seen it before. We really seem to be embracing the American culture when it comes to the trick-or-treating and all the stuff that, you know, is related to that. So for me in particular is obviously also a time of considering my self-worth, and also considering opening the communication beyond the veil, because I have a lot of people that I want to remember this Day of the Dead. So this is the Italian tradition, and it's not just proper to the Latin American culture, it's the Latin culture and the Catholic culture overall. We do take our time to go to the cemetery, for example. We have all our rituals that we just feel that it's the time of the year in which we want to be closer to the ones that are not there with us anymore. And we do that especially on the 2nd of November. That's for Italians, it's the Day of the Dead. That's the remembrance of those who are no longer with us. And so it's something that really belongs to my culture. And I posted a couple of days a video in which I was showing you the decks that I use in order to be able to facilitate this communication with the Beyond the Veil, and some pairings. And I've also posted a spread, you know, in order to be able to first and foremost see who's there for you, who's coming from Beyond the Veil to get closer to you and get in touch with you. And then what the message is and how to honor the person in your lives. But today I wanted it to be about fun, because Halloween, it's also about having fun. And so we're going to have a look at a few pairings with my spooky decks, and we're going to hopefully enjoy that. So the first one is, of course, the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. And I have to say, I use this one, particularly some of the year, over and over again. But only this year, I am so very happy that I found the perfect match for it. And it's called the Dark Magic Oracle. So this is by Fiona Horner. It's been illustrated by Jazz Abaya. It has been published by Rockpool, and I think it's a very recent publication, if not probably for a couple of months ago. They did make it so that it coincided with you know, the spooky season. The reason why I really enjoy this pairing is because there seems to be that kind of bluish tint that if you're familiar with the Bohemian Gothic, you will recognize immediately. So many of the cards of the Oracle deck do share that kind of a bluish tint, as I call it, which is, the funny thing is I was watching the progress of the new edition of the Bohemian Gothic on, I think it was Instagram and Facebook, but particularly on Facebook. Okay, I'm getting there. And it looks like they've actually tweaked a little bit this blue tint on the background. So the new edition will not necessarily have this kind of temperature in the colors. I have nothing against it, to be honest with you. I actually like it. I really don't mind it. The Bohemian Gothic is one of my favorite decks when it comes to these type of decks, because it's got that kind of atmosphere, that kind of vibe. It really brings you to that state of consciousness in which you realize how deep into a trance state you are, but you also realize that there's a lot of whimsical facts, whimsical faces, whimsical expressions, situations, depicted in the cards that don't necessarily, let's say, they cover that side of the gloom on the one hand, because it is, about creatures of the night, basically. But it also covers that side of whimsical aspect of Halloween that we also appreciate so much. What happens when you paired it up with the Dark Magic Oracle, and I stopped here because I really wanted to point a few things out, is that you actually bring back to the surface whatever was lost by the very specific features and character and personality of the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. So the Bohemian Gothic has a very strong personality, and it's the jester. So it's the person, it's not the person, it's the deck that is actually showing you some things, but then, taking a step back and looking at you and see how you react, but always kind of have with that smile on their face and see if you get it. And so many of the cards, you will just look at them and you keep on looking at them and you think, I feel like I'm missing something, and then you find it, and then you go, oh, okay, I get it. So the World card, for example, is really beautiful card, but it is still the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, and you think, okay, where's the gloom? Where's the Gothic in it? And then you find it. It's, of course, she is, at first it looks like she's standing on a stone, but if you look closer, you'll actually realize that these stones are shaped like skulls, or they actually are skulls. And so goes, with this card, really beautiful, the Five of Cups, but then you see that the statue has lost its head, for example. So in each and every card, there'll be a little bit of engagement from you in order to be able to find out where the Gothic is. That's why I call it. And the Dark Magic Oracle actually brings that back up into the surface. So we've got Evolve with It's Okay to Grow. Between the Five of Cups and the World, it is a rite of passage, losing something. Crying over spilled milk doesn't get you anywhere. You only get stuck. So just accept that it's okay to evolve, and while you're evolving, you're necessarily losing something. You're leaving it behind. This image to me is terrifying because it shows someone hugging a teddy bear, and these hands, these creepy hands, just crawling from under the bed and trying to grasp at the person. And what I really like is the fact that the message overall of this card is actually very positive, in the sense that it tells you that even though it is scary to face something that is completely new to you because you are evolving, it is okay to let go of something to be replaced. And that's how you reach the completeness of the world. Now, these two together, I can assure you, this was just one example that I wanted to, highlight, but these two together are incredibly powerful. I actually really appreciate the whimsical side of the Bohemian Gothic Tarot because it does kind of soften the blow of the dark magic, because the dark magic can actually be a little bit too dark, if you know what I mean, can be a little bit daunting. And it's very demanding of you, because if you read not just the keyword but also the sentence at the bottom, it is something very, very deep. So we've got, for example, rescue, help another to help yourself. So when you're rescuing something or someone, you're actually helping yourself. You are putting yourself in a position in which you will be more attuned to the rest of the world, to the person behind you, to your neighbor, to your next of kin, etc. And by being more attuned, you will fix and you will establish that meaningful connection that will ultimately represent yourself in a new dimension. Between the hangman, that's pointing out that new dimension in which you're going to see yourself, it's a new perspective, and the magician, because when you're helping someone else, you're helping yourself and you're putting your skills to good use. So as you can see, there is so much that you can you can see in all of these cards, and it's always very, very interesting. But because as I was mentioning before, the dark magic oracle is quite strong, you want some other tech to be pairing it with that will bring back the smile onto your face. So it's a let's say I'll help you and you help me, in the sense that the oracle helps the tarot to find a focus, but the tarot helps the oracle to perhaps bring back a little bit of that smile that we may have lost. So the Bohemian Gothic with the Dark Magic Oracle. The next tarot that we're going to have a look at is the Santa Muerte Tarot by Fabio Listrani, which is a Italian author, and this is a publication by Lo Scarabeo, but this deck has got probably 4 years, 3-4 years. I'm not entirely sure, but this was when Lo Scarabeo actually moved onto this kind of deluxe production in a 2-part box, which is, I have to say, it's very nice. The only thing that I have to say is that sometimes the measures are not entirely correct, so you will have the top part or the bottom part coming loose. For example, I think it's my Symbolic Soul Tarot, every time that I lift it from the top part, the bottom part comes loose because it's too the measurement were not taken correctly, which is, yeah, it's nothing. I mean, I still really like that box as a product value, because they're not that much more expensive than the tuck boxes. Tuck boxes, if you watch my channel, you know I'm not a fan of a tuck box. Now this one, the Santa Muerte, I've actually paired it with the Witching Hour Oracle by Lorianne Anderson, and yes, you've heard this name. She's also the author of the Seasons of the Witch Oracles, and although the illustrator in this case is Olivia Berkey, that's her name. If I don't pronounce it correctly, you can see how it's spelled. And you can tell that obviously it's got the kind of the same imprint, let's say, as the Seasons of the Witch Oracles, but a different art style, and it's absolutely fine, because this gives you the possibility to pair it up with different decks, and that's exactly what I'm saying, what I'm doing. So I really like the Santa Muerte. The Santa Muerte for me is the epitome of all that is El Dia de los Muertos in the Latin American culture, which I recognize also very similar to the way in which we in Italy, in the Mediterranean culture, celebrated the Day of the Dead. What happens is that this deck is one of my favorite because of the number of skulls that you can see. Practically each and every character in the deck is a skeleton. Therefore, if you have a skull, if you have a head, you have a skull. And you know, in many cards there's actually more than one. So what happens is that it could be one of those decks that is difficult to pair up, because it's got so much personality, and I always go back to that. Sometimes the deck has got such a strong personality that it becomes a little bit difficult to pair up, unless there is an oracle deck that is released by the same author and it shares a very similar art style. You will find that you actually struggle to find another oracle deck that is matching up really well with this tarot deck. And the reason mainly is that the Santa Muerte tarot has such a strong personality, it doesn't need anything to be complementary to it. So it's complete by itself. So what you can do, instead of looking for something that gives it a different perspective, what you can do is actually looking for something with a similar vibe, something that shares the same kind of energy. So in this case, this is the Eight of Cups, and it's one of my favorite cards in this deck. I have to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite cards overall, because I absolutely love the way in which this person, or this skeleton in this case, is depicted, you know, thinking, because they have their hand on their face, on their, they're hugging their chin and they're thinking. And it's the one of the ways in which I actually think of the Eight of Cups. You're thinking, you're evaluating. For me, the Eight of Cups is already a step ahead, so you are actually moving forward, you're leaving something broken behind. But this is shown by the fact that this person, by tilting their heads, what they're doing, they're tilting the cups that are around their skull, their head, like a crown, and there is liquid inside, and by doing so they're actually spilling the liquid, and this is gone. This is gone. There is no way to retrieve it. There is no way to gather it back. So the way in which I look at the Eight of Cups, as in you leaving a situation that is broken behind and moving on to something else, is actually reflected by the loss of the liquid, let's call it water, that you can barely see in the card. So we got the doubt, but we also have the leaving that situation and moving forward. I really like that there's the element of liquidity and water, for example, that is also resonating in the Oracle card, because it talks about bathing in the river. So bathing in the river in this case is referring to self-care, so take care of yourself. And the Queen of Cups, which is the archetype of, you know, the mystic, or the person that has this nurturing and empathic energy that understands others. So by taking care of yourself, you're literally just taking your intuition and taking your view of things and moving on, and just thinking about them and just letting them spill out, because you no longer need them. So that's the way in which you take care of yourself. I really like the possibilities that these two decks give you in order to form these kind of sentences, in order to be inspired and do a reading. There is also a few similarities when it comes to the color palette, for example, perhaps also when it comes to directionality, perhaps also when it comes to the artwork, but that's not necessarily something that I was looking for. I was merely focusing on the energies of both these two decks, and I really like that we've got roses here and we've got roses here. And you know, that when these kind of things happen, it really is a confirmation that these two decks are actually having a conversation with each other. So low vibrations between the Sun and the Three of Wands. This is a reminder that the energy of the joyful energy of the Sun can actually be ephemeral, can actually be not long in nature, not very concrete, not, you know, it's got no foundation. It's something that is very temporary. So just in order to move away from the lack of roots of the joy of the Sun, we still need to do our journey. We still need to set our wheels in motion and therefore, you know, build on something more concrete, even though for now it is a time for celebration. That's what the card is, of the Sun is telling you, basically. So really enjoy these two together. As you can see, there's a lot to talk about when looking at them. I just absolutely love each and every card of the Santa Muerte. It's just skulls galore for me. It's so very nice. So let's have a look at the next pair. And the next pair is between one of my favorite decks to use this time of the year, the Zombie Tarot, because it's really the kind of deck that embodies the whimsical side of Halloween, but also the intense side of the thinning of the veil. So this deck, I've talked about this deck many times before, and I've actually been pairing this deck up with a few of my Oracle decks. I think that one that was very successful was the pairing up with the Oracle of Oddities. But today I'm actually going to show you something else that I hope will work. I don't necessarily know because I've only had a look at it once, but I think it might. Ta-da! So the Southern Gothic Oracle, which is an indie deck, but okay, now I could be wrong, but I think I heard that there might be a mass market edition coming. I'm not entirely sure, so you know, just check on Stacey William Ang website, because that's where the creator posts. Well, not necessarily, probably she posts something on Instagram as well. I follow her Instagram page, but I'm pretty sure she was mentioning something about making it mass market. In any case, there's many editions of this deck. I have the very first one, I believe, but I also have the expansion pack, which came with cards without a number. So let's see if I exactly. So for example, this one here came from the expansion pack, and the expansion pack had a name something like the Haunted Pack, which was perfect for, you know, Halloween, obviously. And I really enjoy these two together. I've tried a couple of times before and I really liked it. And now for the first time live, we're going to see how they work together. But I think that we're there. It's also because there's a few similarities when it comes to the borders that have that kind of creamy color, which is not necessarily white, but it really works. And then, you know, the Bohemian Gothic is an excellent oracle in the sense that obviously it's a very complete one. It's got a lot of energies. You can really work with both the images and the titles, but you can also work with the couple of keywords that you got at the bottom of the card. For example, in this case, live oak doesn't necessarily mean something straight out, you know, at first look to me. So I actually look at what the keywords are, which are longevity and reliability. So in this case, I need to look at the keywords, but I don't always need that. There is also the Southern Botanic Oracle, which I don't have anymore because one day I just looked at my Oracle collection and I found that I had so many botanical related decks that it was ridiculous. It was just really overwhelming. It was over the top. And so I decided to cull when it comes to, you know, these botanical themed decks. And to be honest with you, I do have a lot of botanical decks that I use more often, let's say, than I was using the Southern Botanic. So that's the reason why I rehomed that one. But if it does come mass market, I'll probably buy it again. And that one also came with an expansion pack, which was called the Poisonous Plants or something like that, related also to, you know, the fact that you could eventually use it for Halloween. But I'm just in awe of how these two pair up together. It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, look at this. There's the Ace of Cups with the Bride of Annandale, toxic nostalgia and infatuation. Definitely something related to feelings and strength. So we've got this kind of conversation going on, and I really do have the impression that it's a funny one, it's a whimsical one, it's a way in which the two decks almost confront each other to say, I'm spookier than you, no, I'm spookier. There's a battle going on, but it's a good battle, and you see that going on when two decks show you more or less the same geographical form or shapes, not geographical, sorry, geometrical shapes, when they show you objects that resonate and objects that repeat themselves, or perhaps when the characters in both the Oracle and the Tarot cards are looking in the same direction, or they're looking away from each other, or they're looking at each other. There's always a lot that you can tell by reading the symbolism of the decks. And I really like this, the Nine of Swords. So we've got the Bell Witch with scapegoating and blame between the Nine of Swords and the King of Hazard. So this is absolutely such a really great conversation. Of course, in the Nine of Swords, you're so deep into the worries that wake you up at 2 a.m, and it's always worries that look even worse at 2 a.m. than they did at 9 p.m, for example, because unfortunately the 2 a.m. is the time of the day, or the night actually, in which we feel most alone. And you want to find a way to escape from that situation and find a way to blame someone else, because you want to gain back control over something you feel you have absolutely no way to overcome. And that's, you know, that's the magic or the terror, depending on how you see it, of the 2 a.m. because it really changes your perception on things. And if you know that about yourself and you convince that about yourself, then you wake up with a different perspective, I can assure you that. So every time that there is a card that belongs to the haunting pack from the Southern Gothic, it's actually really nice to see, you know, what card it is. And we got the Vampire Richmond, for example, with ego and narcissism between Judgment and the Magician, and so on and so forth. We've got the Hellhound with cruelty and fear tactics between the World and the Queen of Wands. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you have the kind of performer which is using this kind of fear tactics in order to be able to take over the world. Obviously, you do give it some kind of a spin, in the sense that we are looking at 2 spooky decks, and therefore, you know, the spin needs to be spooky. So these 2 together, it's absolutely amazing. I absolutely love the way they share a similar color palette, not just on the borders, but on the actual images on the cards. And they have this magnificent conversation that we are just spectators of. We're just sitting there, relaxing, and looking at these 2 fighting, you know, fighting like in this 8 of Wands, for example, chasing around each other, etc. So we've been pairing up the Southern Gothic Oracle with the Zombie Tarot. Another tarot deck that I really enjoy using this time of the year is Rooks Macabre Tarot. She used to go by the name, they used to go by the name Samantha West. Now it's Sam Rook, and there's a lot of these creators' tarot decks that have been picked up mass market, in particular recently by Rockpool. In particular recently, I've seen the Sweet Forager's Daughter and the Valuria Tarot. The Valuria used to be an indie deck, and it used to be called the Penelope Tarot, and I actually have the indie edition, which I, simply for shape reason, I actually prefer. But this one is one of my favorite. I really enjoy this deck by Sam. It's a joy to look at. It's just that perfect combination of cute and creepy. And this year I'm going to pair it up with the Wandering Soul Oracle by Rachel Jean, who's Australian, by the way. And for what I understand, I could be wrong, but for what I understand, because there has been a lot of problems with fake counterfeit decks of of the creator, she's actually stopped. I think probably not the Oracle deck, that will continue in the production, in the releases, in the printing, but I think she's given the announcement that she was going to stop printing the tarot deck. I don't know how many she's got left, but if you follow her Instagram page, you will see what I mean. She posted some really terrible images of counterfeit decks that were sold for like, I don't know, $5. And I don't know, because I'm not a creator, but that must be so disheartening for an illustrator, a creator of a deck, because you pour your heart and all your energies in creating something, and it might take years to come to light, and then you just find it completely degraded because the quality is terrible, and obviously it comes in a tag box and priced at $5, and it's not a matter. So they were saying, okay, it's not even a matter of the price, because obviously there's no profit to be made when you sell something at $5, because it literally takes more money than that to just print a deck. When you look at the even just with really bad quality paper, it would take more than $5 to actually realize it. And so it's a slap in the face, because it's almost like saying, your work is not even worth $5. And I completely get where they're coming from. It's an awful feeling. I am not a creator, but I am a writer, and a couple of times I've had people in my writing course or writing workshops stealing my ideas and and displaying them, and not even you know, acknowledging that. And I understand that we're all at the same level. Whenever you go into a writer's workshop, obviously you're at the same level. But once you're a published author, you have some rights to protect your work. And so that was kind of, you know, it was difficult to accept for me, because obviously on the one hand I was asked to be, you know, to understand how the game is played on the one hand, but on the other hand I was thinking, okay, well, I do understand how the game is played, but this is still someone who stole my concept. So it's very difficult to get out of that, to find an end to that discussion. I don't know if you agree or not. I don't know if it ever happened to you. If you are creating something, you're the IP owner of something you created, whether it's something concrete, substantial like a deck, or it's something that relates to the written word, for example. It's still your creation, and you should have the right, you know, to protect what you've created. And then in some cases, unfortunately, especially when it comes to writing, those rights are just overlooked. And I think that in music, you find a lot of that as well. A friend of mine, you know, is a musician, and they say it's basically, there are laws to protect you, but no one is actually enforcing them. So it feels like it's a very competitive, but also not fair kind of environment. But going back to these two, I really love the way these two pair up together. Obviously using the black and white, as you can see, even though Sam's jack has got a splurge of yellow or gold every now and then. But they're really beautiful. They have this kind of atmosphere that relates so much to the part of Halloween that we like. And I really appreciate that there is just this clarity that comes in the oracle with the images, and also the keyword that is there for you to, you know, focus on the themes that are brought about. So I really enjoy these two together. Look, there's crystals, obviously, and that's something that I keep on repeating whenever this happens. Whenever you have something that recurs on the cards, it means that the decks are actually happy to be paired up. They're having a nice conversation, they're having a nice time, so they're actually kind of happy to see each other, they're hanging out, you know, they're best buds. So the Wandering Soul Oracle and the Macabre Tarot. And then last but not least today, we're pairing these two together. So the Magicians, Martyrs and Madman Tarot by Rooks Macabre, and the Stacy DeMarco, so famous Halloween Oracle, which is a favorite by the world over when it comes to Halloween decks. Now, this is a bit of a more serious kind of pairing than I thought it would be, probably because I tend to remember the Halloween Oracle as more whimsical than what it actually is. And I do know that the Magician, Martyrs and Madman Tarot is very, very intense. So the result, but I like to be the judge of that, I think that the result is a bit too intense perhaps, although these two pair up so well together that you can't. So when you set something in motion, especially when it comes to these kind of energies that you are producing, so you are the owner of these energies. When you pair up a tarot and an oracle deck together and you start reading with them, be aware that you are producing energy. There is a chemical process that is actually taking place. Okay, so as chemical processes go, that's a transformation. So whenever there's a transformation, there is the release of energy. The release of energy is very important for you to understand where you're at. What are you doing? What are you focusing on? What is your intention? And so whenever I find myself pairing up a tarot and oracle deck, unless I'm doing that purely, let's say, for aesthetic reasons, so I just want to see whether they go well because of the colors or the artwork, etc. But apart from that, generally speaking, I'm very aware and conscious of what I'm doing, in the sense that I am literally releasing energy. And so be very mindful of what kind of energy you want to release. That's all I'm saying. So it's something that we need to be aware of, something we need to be grounded when we proceed in doing this. And I find that these two share so much that it was a bit of it would have been really a pity for me to discard the way in which they match, only because I find them necessarily at this time of my life and in this period of time to be a bit too intense for me. So I'm showing this pair because it's something that I really believe that it should be shown. But for me, this is very, let's say, it's something that reminds me of my own experience with mental health and mental illness related to my dad, and the fact that he suffered for all of his life and all of my life, of course, of paranoid schizophrenia with psychotic episodes, very frequent psychotic episodes. And so what happens is that there is so much intuition going on between the characters represented by this deck. So this deck by Rooks Macabre is related back to magicians, as you will probably understand from the title, martyrs and madmen. But every time you look at the guidebook, because for example you don't remember who Bridget Bishop was, or what the story was, or what happened, and why is she depicted as a Ten of Swords, and what is the outcome of this story, because you always want to know what comes next, don't you? And then what happened. So when you actually delve into these stories, you need to have some kind of a protective energy, protection around you, because they are, let me tell you, not all of them, of course. There's 78 cards, so there's not 78 cards that are exactly the same, but there are many of them very, very powerful and very intense. So when we talk about mental health, for example, I'm always very mindful of acknowledging the pain that these patients have, especially because it is something that is forgotten by society more often than not. We live in a country, Australia is unfortunately way behind everywhere else in the world, or not the rest of the world, but at least in the countries that I've lived in, and I lived in 5 different countries. So we're way behind, you know, all of the other countries I lived in when it comes to mental health. There is a massive stigma, unfortunately. People with mental discomfort are not helped at all. There is a lot of talk about it, but unfortunately at the end of the day there isn't much awareness, and people are still treated in a certain way. And I had myself a very awful episode the other day in which I was treated like a junkie, simply because I was asking for medication to alleviate panic attacks, and I was bullied, I was ridiculed, I was treated like a junkie, I was denied medication even though I explained that it wasn't for anxiety, it was literally because of panic attacks. I have a physiological response in the body that can actually bring harm, because if I'm driving and I have a panic attack, I can have a car accident, I can hurt myself, I can hurt others. And with all of my studies, and I explained, look, I'm actually studying neuroscience, I'm actually, and I wasn't seeking medication for a personal recreational use. I can assure you of that. It's also because no one would use benzodiazepines, for example, for recreation. Usually it doesn't work that way. So, but I was really bullied and ridiculed to the point that I had to report this person, this doctor, to the healthcare commissioner. And because I read reviews about this doctor in other websites, and there is a recurring pattern of literally mocking and making fun of people with this kind of let's call it discomfort, because in many cases that's what it takes. It's a discomfort, and you go from a discomfort to a total full-blown illness like my dad had, for example. And and being mocked for that, being bullied, being shown the door, and being treated like a junkie when I'm someone who's literally not taking any kind of medication ever, because I'm always relying back to natural remedies, even when sometimes I actually should. It was very humiliating, and I'm sharing this experience because I have the impression that the rest of the world does not know how far behind Australia is when it comes to mental health awareness. I have been sharing the experience that I had with my dad before, And I've heard a lot of people reaching out, and thank you so much for doing that. So today I'm reaching out with something concerning myself. So it was a horrible experience. I do not wish it upon anyone. And, you know, walking back home, I thought to myself, I'm a professional. I have 3 diplomas. Nothing counts. Okay. If someone sees you as a junkie, that's how you feel. For at least for a while, until you get back your sense of self-confidence, your sense of self-worth, your sense of propriety of who you are, what you've done in your life. But it was awful, and it was I never met this person before. She never met me. There was absolutely no let's say reason. I wasn't, you know, I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought to myself, do I look like a junkie? Perhaps I should have worn, you know, a different pair of pants. And then I thought to myself, just stop. Use your emotional intelligence. Stop. Because that's not what it was. It wasn't my mistake. It wasn't the way I look. It wasn't the way I talk. It wasn't what I was asking for. It's just this person is ignorant in the sense that she doesn't know what a panic attack is. She literally had to look it up, and she was Googling stuff, and because she kept referring to anxiety, and I was saying that is a physiological response that is completely different. And she was confused, and she probably felt like she was being tested in something that she doesn't know. And as a consequence, she turned things around in blaming me, because that's what a lot of people do. And, you know, I wished for this person to take a couple of weeks into a training, because that's, you know, what I think is necessary. Because if there is a recurring pattern of people being sent away when they go there for this kind of help, that it needs to be addressed, it needs to be done. Because I have a very mild discomfort, so my panic attacks are not very frequent, but there might be someone else in a lot more in a much worse state of distress. And if they don't get the kind of attention or care, if it is denied to them, then these people should be trained in order to reevaluate their role in a society as a doctor. That's all I'm saying. That's literally the way in which I put it to the healthcare commissioner. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I just wanted to share this with you because I found myself many times talking to people outside of Australia about Australia, and there is this misconception that Australia is a lucky country. When it comes to the healthcare, let me assure you, I lived in 5 different countries. It's the worst one. The facilities are terrible, at least in Sydney. But there is absolutely, when it comes to awareness for these specific things, there's none. There is no awareness. You are literally mocked and bullied and judged and derided. And I kid you not, it's personal experience. You go to a pharmacist and ask, you have the script in your hand and you're still judged. You're still being judged. And people still look at you sideways, and perhaps they whisper something in somebody else's ear. And it's not being, I'm not exaggerating, this is still happening in 2023 or at the end of 2023. And it needs a much stronger response of awareness when it comes to these problems. So I wanted to show you this pairing, even though it is a very intense one. It's a very strong one. It's probably not very fun. But it's something that needed to be said. So in any case, this was the last pair that I wanted to show you today. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. I apologize if my sharing on my personal experience, again related to mental discomfort, is not in tone with the whimsical atmosphere, but it's something that happened to me just yesterday. And I was really looking into these tarot decks of the Magician, Martyrs and Madmen, and the stories behind these people. Everyone looks at Madmen like it's a plague. And I repeat, and I will never get tired of repeating this, you have no idea the amount of pain that these people have. So the least we can do is try and understand their position. So that was it. That was my rant for today. I never do that, so sorry. Sorry if I brought this up. I hope that, I hope it resonates with someone, because it's something that is very difficult for me to share. but if it helps even just one person, I'm happy that I did. So happy Halloween, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.